I woke up in my husband's body that Tuesday morning, staring at the ceiling of our Lakeshore Drive penthouse. And the first thing I did was reach for the nightstand drawer, where he kept his Glock. The betrayal hit like a freight train when I saw my own face smirking back at me from the full-length mirror. Victoria's face. Flawless Botox, smooth skin and all, while I fumbled with fingers that weren't mine, realizing she'd stolen my life to bury her sins in mine. And as I chambered around, whispering her name like a curse, I knew the revenge I'd been plotting in silence for months was about to bloom into something biblical. Something that would make the Windy City's elite choke on their caviar and single malt regrets. It started 6 months earlier, back when life felt like one of those glossy Instagram feeds, endless brunches at the Gauge, power walks along the lakefront with my golden retriever,
Moksh,
and nights tangled in Egyptian cotton sheets with Victoria Hale, the woman who'd promised me the world on a silver platter. I was Lila Voss, 34, rising star at Voss and Hale Consulting, the boutique firm I'd co-founded with her in a fit of millennial optimism right after our MBA from Kellogg. We were the queens of Chicago's tech scene, brokering deals that turned startups into unicorns, sipping rose at rooftop parties overlooking the Bean. But beneath the filters and the forced laughs, cracks were spiderwebbing through our empire. Victoria was the brains, or so everyone said, the one with the Harvard undergrad pedigree and the Rolodex full of venture capitalists who hung on her every word.
me,
I was the heart, the one who schmoozed the clients over deep dish at Lou Malnati's, remembered birthdays, and kept the books balanced when her intuitive spending on Louboutins threatened to sink us. We were lovers, partners, soulmates, or at least that's what I told myself when she'd cancel our plans for networking dinners that smelled like cologne and lies. Deep down, I knew she was slipping away, chasing the high of boardroom conquests that left me holding the bag. The secret she buried? It was a doozy. The kind that could topple empires and land you in Supermax. 2 years prior, during a late-night audit, I'd uncovered the ghost accounts, shell companies siphoning client funds into offshore havens.
million,
Funneled through a Cayman trust that traced back to Victoria's signature. She'd framed it as creative accounting to juice our valuations, but it was straight-up embezzlement. The sort that had sunk Enron and left CEOs rotting in orange jumpsuits. When the feds started sniffing around after an anonymous tip, one I'd later suspect was from a jilted ex-client, Victoria did what she did best. She pivoted. You're the numbers girl. Lila, she'd cooed over takeout Thai that night, her hand on my thigh like we were still in college. If it comes down to it, you take the heat. I'll make it worth your while. New identities. A beach house in Malibu. The works. I laughed it off at first. Called her dramatic.
but the fear gnawed at me.
She wasn't joking. By dawn, she'd slipped something into my wine, a bitter tang I dismissed as cheap Merlot, and I blacked out. Waking up groggy in our conference room with forged documents on my desk. Emails time-stamped from my laptop confessing to the whole scheme. She'd planted the seeds. And I was the fall guy. The loyal fool who'd bear the crime, because love makes you stupid. But Victoria? She had bigger plays. Whispers in the industry pointed to Elias Crow, the shadowy biotech mogul who'd made his billions off neural implants and enhancement therapies for Wall Street wolves, think Adderall on steroids, but with a side of ethical black holes. Rumor had it Crow had cracked something revolutionary, neural transference, a body swap tech born from DARPA wet dreams, tested on convicts in black site labs. Swap your consciousness into a fresh vessel. Leave the old one as a vegetable. Perfect for the ultra-rich dodging mortality or, in Victoria's case, legal nooses. She'd been courting Crow for months. trading firm intel for access to his inner circle. I found the emails deleted but recoverable late-night rendezvous at his Gold Coast mansion. Discussions of contingency vessels.
Me.
She was going to swap us, dump her rotting soul into my body, and let the feds haul away the shell of hers. Comatose and catatonic. I'd rot in prison for her theft, while she waltzed free in my skin, inheriting the firm, the dog, the life we'd built. The betrayal wasn't just deep, it was a goddamn abyss. The morning of the swap, I confronted her. We'd argued in the kitchen, sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows, the city humming below like it didn't care about broken hearts. You're insane, Vic. This isn't some sci-fi flick. She laughed, that throaty, superior chuckle that always made me feel small. Insane? Darling, survival's the new sane. You've always been too soft for this game. Then the prick in my neck, the syringe hidden in her yoga mat roll, and the world dissolved into static. When I came to, it was in her body. Lithe, toned from soul cycle sessions I could never afford the time for. But wrong. All wrong. The mirror showed her face, high cheekbones, ash blonde bob, those ice blue eyes that could freeze a room. I touched the glass, and her fingers trembled. Down the hall, in our bedroom, my old body stirred, Victoria's essence piloting it like a stolen Porsche. She sat up, stretched, and grinned at her reflection, my reflection, with a wolfish hunger.
God.
Lila, you really do have the better ass. This is going to be fun. Fun. She called it fun as she sauntered into the kitchen, poured coffee from the Nespresso I'd picked out, and scrolled my phone for messages from Crow. I followed, her heels clicking on marble, her voice, cracking as I demanded, "What the hell did you do?" She didn't even look up. Insurance.
Babe.
The feds raid tomorrow. You'll confess, take the plea, and by the time you're out in 10, I'll have turned V&H into a billion-dollar beast. You'll thank me. I lunged, but she was faster, slamming me against the island with strength I didn't know my own frame had. Don't make this messy. Elias's tech isn't perfect. Rejection's a bitch if you fight it. Then she kissed me, kissed herself, really tasting like betrayal and Chanel no.
5.
Love you.
Lee.
Always will. And she left for the office, my body behind the wheel of the Audi, while I huddled on the floor, piecing together the nightmare. That first day was a blur of panic. I couldn't access her bank accounts without biometrics that now belonged to the imposter. Max growled at me when I tried to pet him, sensing the stranger in his mom's skin. Calls to the firm went to voicemail. Texts bounced back as unknown. By noon, I was in a cab to Crow's mansion, using the last of her Amex on a black car service because Ubers don't go to gated enclaves like that. The driver raised an eyebrow at the address, but said nothing. Chicago cabbies have seen worse. Crow's estate was a fortress of glass and steel, perched on a bluff overlooking Lake Michigan, guarded by NDAs and armed security disguised as valets. I bluffed my way past the gate with Victoria's name, her voice smooth as silk. But inside, Elias Crow waited like a spider in his web. He was in his late 50s, silver fox with a predator's smile, lounging in a library that smelled of leather-bound ledgers and regret. MS. Hail, he drawled, not bothering to stand. Victoria said you might drop by. Nervous about the procedure? I played along, heart hammering. And over scotch he spilled it all, the neural bridge. A helmet of electrodes and nanites that mapped and migrated consciousness in under an hour. Reversible. For a price. But fatal if tampered with midstream. It's the future. Lila, he said, using my name like a weapon. Victoria's paying top dollar for a clean slate. You understand, don't you? Loyalty has its limits. I nodded, sipping the drink to steady my hands, and that's when I saw it, the kill switch. A sleek fob on his desk, matte black, etched with a single button. Press it, and the swap unravels, frying both brains in a surge of feedback. He'd mentioned it casually, a failsafe for non-consenting parties. My mind raced, steal it. End this now? But he was watching, always watching, and one wrong move meant game over. By evening, I was back in the penthouse, barricaded in the guest room, researching on her laptop while Victoria, in my body, partied at some gala, posting selfies on LinkedIn as Lila Voss. Unstoppable. The raid was set for dawn. I had one night to flip the script. That's when the planning began. Quiet and meticulous. The kind of revenge that simmers like gumbo on a slow boil. I started with the basics, inventory. Her closet yielded disguises, wigs, oversized coats from her anonymous donor phase. The safe in the study held cash, passports, and a burner phone I'd forgotten about. And the Glock. Cold steel promising symmetry. But revenge isn't just bullets, it's erosion. I hacked her emails, well, mine now, with a password I'd guessed from her poetry phase, Lilith Orever 87. Buried in the drafts were confessions, half-written apologies to lovers I'd never known about. She'd been cheating for years, not just with Crow, but with half the board at our biggest client, Technova. And the embezzlement? It funded her escape fund. A slush pile for a new life in Vancouver. My name on the deeds to throw off the scent. As midnight ticked over, I sat cross-legged on the silk duvet, plotting in a notebook swiped from her desk. Step 1. Survive the raid. Let them cuff me, her in my skin, and watch her squirm from the shadows. Step 2. Infiltrate Crow. Seduce the devil with his own tools. Step 3. The twist they'd never see coming. Because here's the controversial part. The one that keeps me up at nights even now. I didn't just want her back in her body. I wanted her to feel the weight of every lie, every stolen breath. And if that meant decisions that danced on the edge of morality, framing innocence, bending laws like pretzels, well, survival's the new sane, right? The raid came at 5:47 a.m. just as the first light hit the lake like spilled mercury. I watched from the fire escape, heart in my throat, as SWAT breached the doors. Victoria, in my body, played the part flawlessly, tears streaming, hands up, babbling about a mistake. They dragged her out in cuffs, my face twisted in feigned terror, and loaded her into a van that screamed south toward the Dirksen Federal Building. The neighbors gawked from their balconies. Phones out, live tweeting the fall of Chicago's Golden Girl. I slipped away in a hoodie and jeans that hung loose on her frame, melting into the L train crowd like any other commuter nursing a hangover. Freedom tasted like stale coffee from a corner bodega, but it was mine. First stop, a chop shop in Pilsen for a burner laptop and fake ID, Lila Ramirez now. A nod to the abuela who'd raised me in Little Village before I traded tamales for trust funds. From there, I went underground, crashing in a flop house off 18th Street, the kind where roaches unionize and dreams go to die. But it was safe.
Lucifer.
And gave me space to weave the web. Crow was the linchpin. I needed leverage, something to force his hand. Digging through Victoria's encrypted drive, thank God for her vanity passwords, I uncovered the motherlode videos. Not the fun kind grainy feeds from his lab. Volunteers strapped to gurneys, eyes glazing over as swaps went south. Botched transfers leaving husks that twitched like forgotten experiments. And emails, chaining him to government contracts. Black budget slush funds for enhanced interrogation tech. Crow wasn't just a mogul. He was a warlord in a Brooks Brothers suit, peddling souls to the highest bidder. I reached out anonymously. A ghost email from a VPN in Estonia. Elias. Let's talk insurance. I know about Subject 47, the senator's wife who came back wrong. His reply was swift. A meet at a neutral spot. The Berghof downtown. Over lunch. Arrogance. Thy name is billionaire. I arrived early, nursing a Manhattan in a booth that smelled of history and sauerbraten, her face hidden under a wide-brim hat and oversized shades. When he slid in opposite, all pinstripes and cufflinks, I slid the USB across the table. Play nice. Or this hits WikiLeaks by sundown. His eyes narrowed, but he pocketed it. Victoria's pet project. What do you want? Voss, your body back? It's occupied. I leaned in, voice low. Everything. The swap reversed. Her confessions wired to the U.S. Attorney, and you walk away clean. Or I burn it all. We haggled like used car salesmen, deadlines, safe houses, the fob as collateral. By dessert, apple strudel that tasted like ash, we had a deal. The reversal at his lab. Midnight tomorrow. But trust? That's a luxury for suckers. As I left, the city pulsed around me. Horns blaring on Adams Street. Pigeons scattering like guilty secrets. I felt the weight of it all. The crime I'd shouldered. The life hijacked. But beneath the fear, a thrill stirred. Revenge wasn't just payback, it was rebirth. And in Victoria's skin, I was becoming something sharper, something unforgiving. Little did I know, the real hook was still buried, waiting to reel us all under. The days blurred into a haze of stakeouts and sleepless nights. Chicago's underbelly becoming my unlikely ally. Pilsen morphed from a crash pad to a command center. Bulletin boards pinned with Crow's blueprints, swiped from a careless intern's Dropbox. Burner sims stacked like poker chips. And a whiteboard scrawled with contingencies in my looping script. Victoria's body adapted quicker than I'd hoped. Her yoga-honed flexibility let me scale fire escapes like a cat burglar, while the endless stamina from her green juice regimen kept caffeine crashes at bay. But mirrors were my enemy. Every glance a reminder of the thief wearing my face. Posting bail updates on my socials. Playing the victim to a symphony of sympathetic DMs. Crow stuck to the deal. Or so it seemed. His lab techs, ghostly figures in hazmat suits, sent encrypted files outlining the reversal protocol. Sedation. Neural sync. A jolt to eject the interloper. Risky. With a 30% chance of residual dissonance, code for waking up with someone else's phobias or, worse, fragmented memories bleeding through. I pored over the specs in a dingy internet cafe off Halstead, nursing black coffee that could have stripped paint, cross-referencing with leaked DARPA docs I'd torrented from the dark web. The tech was real. All right, quantum entanglement on a cocktail of CRISPR and nootropics, but it was Frankenstein's wet dream, stitched from failures. My controversial call came that first afternoon. Leverage meant dirt, and dirt meant dipping into gray areas. I hired Mickey Ruiz, a fixer from my old neighborhood, the kind of guy who could source untraceable Glocks or plant bugs in a judge's chambers for the price of a Cubs ticket. Lila?
Shit.
Girl. You look like that broad from the news.
What?
You clone yourself or something? I slid him $5,000 in Chris Benjamin's, Victoria's emergency stash, and a shopping list, dossiers on Crow's inner circle, starting with his chief engineer.
Dr.
Nadia Voss, no relation. Thank God. But irony's a bitch. Mickey delivered in 48 hours. A manila envelope dropped in a dead drop at a taqueria in Little Village. Nadia's file was gold. Russian defector. PhD in neurobiology from Moscow State. Now Crow's right hand after a stint at Neuralink. But the dirt? An affair with a married State Department suit. Photos timestamped from a DC motel that screamed blackmail. I debated it over tortoise and horchata. Ruin her life to save mine? It felt slimy. The kind of move Victoria would pull. But hesitation was a luxury I couldn't afford. I forwarded the pics to her personal cell with a note. Join the swap. Or join the unemployment line. Midnight. Lab sublevel. She bit. Of course. Greed's a hell of a motivator. By Reversal Eve. I had a skeleton crew. Nadia on the console. 2 rent-a-thugs from Mickey's crew posing as security.
And me?
Slipping into the lab through a service vent like a bad spy novel. The place was a sterile cathedral, white tiles echoing under fluorescent hum, banks of servers whirring like judgmental bees. Gurneys lined up like altars to hubris. A Crow waited in the observation booth, arms crossed, his face a mask of calculated calm. Punctual. I like that. Victoria's downstairs. Prepped and pissed. I followed his gaze to the monitors, my body strapped down. Victoria's essence fighting the restraints, mouthing curses I couldn't hear. Seeing myself like that, vulnerant, violated, ignited something feral. Let's get this over with. But as Nadia fitted the helmets, her hands trembling just a hair too much, I spotted the anomaly, a secondary protocol blinking on her screen. Override, Phoenix. Crow's failsafe? Or something worse. Sedation hit like a velvet hammer, 4 drip of propofol, and who knows what. The world fuzzing to static. Then the pull. A riptide dragging my consciousness through fiber-optic veins. Synapses firing like fireworks gone wrong. Flashes. Victoria's memories bleeding in. Unbidden. Childhood Christmases in Darien with a silver spoon daddy who called her princess. First Killjoy board meeting where she learned to smile through sabotage. Our first kiss under the L tracks. Tasting like rain and possibility. Betrayal echoed back. Her fear of losing it all. The theft not greed, but desperation. A Ponzi to fund the swap after Crow promised eternity. I fought it. Clawing for my core. Max's wet nose on my cheek. Mom's tamales on Sundays. The thrill of closing our first $1 million deal. The jolt came. Electric salvation. And I slammed back into myself, gasping on the gurney as Victoria's scream cut the air. She arched in my old body. No. Her body now, veins bulging, eyes wild. You bitch. You think this ends it? Crow pulled the plug. Literally, yanking cords with a surgeon's precision. Her body went slack. Consciousness ejected like trash, leaving a husk that wheezed but didn't wake. Rejection, he said flatly, signaling the orderlies. Bag it for study. I sat up, limbs mine again, heavy with atrophy from days unused. But God, the relief theme of my own hands, calloused from keyboard marathons, not manicures. Nadia handed me clothes, avoiding my eyes, her phone buzzing with ignored threats. But victory soured quick. As I dressed in the antechamber, Crow cornered me, fob dangling from his pinky like a taunt. Clever girl. But you forget, I built this. And Victoria? She's got friends in low places. He meant the feds. Of course, the raid was theater. Her confession, a scripted plea to lesser charges if she delivered Crow's competitors. The embezzlement? A smokescreen for his tech smuggling. My firm the unwitting mule. I snatched the fob, thumb hovering over the button, not for him, but as insurance. We're square.
Elias.
Touch me, and your empire's confetti. He laughed. That dry rustle like dead leaves. Touch you? Darling. I'm just getting started. Then he was gone, vanishing into an elevator that whispered secrets.
Outside.
The November wind off the lake bit like regret. I hailed a cab to the impound lot, bailing out my Audi with cash from a hidden compartment. Victoria's paranoia. My gain. Driving home, the city lights smeared into halos. I replayed the swap's echoes, her memories clinging like damp smoke. Was I really the victim? Or had I ignored the signs? Enabled her descent? The controversial itch. Forgiveness flickered. A traitor's whisper. But no, betrayal's scar runs too deep. The penthouse was a tomb when I arrived. Max leaping into my arms with frantic joy, tail thumping like a metronome of normalcy. I crashed on the couch, scrolling news alerts. Voss embezzlement bust, co-founder in custody. Victoria's face, my face from days ago, plastered across scene. Spin doctors already weaving her redemption arc. But I had the emails, the videos, the leverage. Phase 2. Dismantle her from the inside. Next morning, I lawyered up, not some ambulance chaser, but Harlan Beck, the silver-tongued fox who'd gotten Rod Blagojevich a retrial. Over eggs Benedict at Wildberry pancakes, I laid it out, the swap, the frame, Crow's complicity. He arched a brow, but didn't flinch. Chicago's full of wild tales. Plausible deniability's your friend. MS.
Voss.
We'll paint her as the mastermind, you the duped partner. But the tech angle? That's dynamite. Feds'll want a piece. Harlan filed motions by noon. Emergency injunction to freeze assets. Subpoena for Crow's logs. Victoria's arraignment was a circus, cameras flashing as she shuffled in. Orange jumpsuit clashing with her impeccable bob, eyes darting like cornered prey. I watched from the back row, incognito in a mariner's cap and Oakley's, heart pounding as the judge denied bail. Flight risk, he intoned. And for a split second, our gazes locked, hers venomous, mine ice. Post-hearing, whispers rippled, Crow pulling strings. His lobbyists flooding the DA's office with contextual donations. I countered with leaks, anonymous drops to the Tribune, detailing the affair. The shells. The swap as experimental therapy gone wrong. Public opinion swung like a pendulum. Free Lila trended. Then justice for Voss. Pitting white-collar sympathy against pitchfork populism. Forums lit up with debates. Was I a hero or a hack? Had I known and stayed silent? The controversy fueled me. A dark elixir. But Crow escalated. That night, as I walked Max in Grant Park, shadows detached from the willows, two goons in unmarked SUV, tasers humming. I bolted, lungs burning, ducking behind the Picasso sculpture as zaps scorched the air. Max sparked fury, buying me seconds to fumble for pepper spray. One clip to the knee, and the leader crumpled, howling, The other caught a heel to the groin courtesy of Victoria's Louboutins in my purse. I zip-tied them with dog leashes, improvisation's the mother of victory, and called Mickey for cleanup. Interrogation in a warehouse off the Dan Ryan yielded gold, Crow's hit list. My name at the top. With bonuses for discreet termination. I taped it all. Sent clips to Harlan for the plea package. But the real bomb? A name in the margins. Senator Hale, Victoria's uncle. The power broker who'd greenlit Crow's contracts. Family ties. Buried deep. Explaining her untouchability. As sirens wailed in the distance, I realized the revenge was mutating. No longer personal, but a hydra of vendettas. And in the quiet after, petting Max's ears, I wondered, was I avenging betrayal? Or becoming it? The line blurred, and that tension coiled tighter, promising a climax that would shatter us all. Winter clamped down on Chicago like a vice. Snowplows growling through the loop as Harlan's motions piled up like drifts. Victoria's trial loomed, January 15th. Cook County Courthouse. A spectacle that had talking heads on Fox and MSNBC salivating. I played the grieving partner in depositions, voice steady as I recounted the swap over chilled Pellegrino and legal pads, the prick of the needle, the disorientation, the slow drip horror of her memories infiltrating mine. Jurors ate it up, good old American fascination with the uncanny, laced with Me Too undertones of stolen agency. But Crow? He was a ghost in the machine, funding her defense through PACs disguised as tech innovation funds.
His moves were chess.
Mine checkers, until the controversial pivot. Desperation breeds innovation.
Or so they say.
I went rogue, enlisting Nadia full-time.
Post-swap.
She'd cracked under the affair leak, showing up at my door with a duffel of lab gear and a haunted stare. He's a monster. Lila. The swaps. They're not for escape. They're for control. Elites trading bodies like stocks, leaving the poor as donors. Her intel was a Pandora's box. Crow's network spanned D.C.
to Silicon Valley.
Politicians and CEOs queuing for upgrades, discarding husks in state-run hospices. And the pinnacle? Project Phoenix. The override I glimpsed, a mass transference protocol. Uploading consciousness to a cloud server for immortality. Victoria wasn't just fleeing charges, she was beta testing entry. Her confession, a Trojan horse to embed Crow's code in federal systems. We holed up in a safe house in Wicker Park, brownstone with creaky floors and a basement lab Nadia jury-rigged from black market parts. Days bled into code sprints, her hammering algorithms to hack the fob. Me cold-calling whistleblowers from payphones that reeked of nickel. Sleep came in snatches. Haunted by Victoria's echoes, her laugh in my dreams. Mocking the fool who'd loved too hard. Max sensed the storm. Pacing circuits around the kitchen island. Whining at shadows. The climax brewed on New Year's Eve. City's fireworks masking our infiltration. Crow's annual gala at the Art Institute was black tie Armageddon, limos disgorging the 1% in fur and finery. Champagne flutes clinking to toasts of disruption. I crashed as Elena Voss, distant cousin. Forged invite courtesy of Mickey's printing press. Nadia's disguise. Arm candy. Brunette wig and a sheath dress that hid her trembling. We slipped past velvet ropes. The grand staircase echoing with jazz from a quartet that sounded like regret. Crow held court in the modern wing, surrounded by sycophants, his arm around a starlet half his age. Victoria was there too, out on house arrest. Ankle monitor beeping faintly under couture. Schmoozing donors like the queen bee she'd always been. Seeing her in the flesh, free on technicalities, ignited the fuse. Our eyes met across the Calder Mobile, hers widening in shock, then narrowing to slits. "Lila," she hissed as I approached, champagne in hand. "You should have stayed buried." "Funny," I murmured. "Clinking glasses." "That's my line." Nadia hovered, palming a neural jammer from her clutch, a prototype to disrupt the fob signal. The plan: corner Crow in the private viewing room. Force the full reversal broadcast. Expose Phoenix live on the gala's AV feed. Controversial? Hell yes, hijacking a feed meant doxing innocents, swapping execs mid-party into waitstaff bodies for chaos. But justice isn't polite. It's a bar fight in a cathedral. It went south fast. Victoria's whisper to a security goon tipped the scales. Alarms hooped as we funneled into the sculpture garden. Snow-dusting Georgia O'Keeffe's bones. Crow emerged from the shadows, flanked by his detail, fob glinting like a badge of godhood. Predictable. MS.
Voss.
But Phoenix activates now. He pressed it, and the world tilted, buzz in my skull. Visions assaulting, not just Victoria's, but fragments from dozens. A chorus of stolen lives wailing. Nadia jammed it, her device sparking in the cold, buying seconds. I tackled Crow, fists flying in a blur of wool and rage, the snow turning pink from split lips. "You stole my life." A goon hauled me off. But Victoria, damn her, lunged too, nails raking his face. "Elias, you promised." Betrayal's echo. Her uncle's strings cut by Crow's ambition. Chaos erupted. Partygoers fleeing. A senator convulsing as his swap glitched. Suit jacket ripping over a valet's frame. In the melee, I grabbed the fob, thumb slamming the override. Not reversal, escalation. The neural net imploded, feedback looping through the gala's Wi-Fi, zapping every sync device. Screams as consciousnesses flickered, a hedge fund bro in a coat check girl's heels, a socialite barking orders in a busboy's gruff baritone. Crow staggered, clutching his temples, his silver hair standing on end like a mad scientist's.
"You. Idiot."
"You'll kill us all." Victoria cornered me against a Chagall window, breath fogging the glass. Her eyes, my old eyes, pleading. "Lee, stop. We can run. Together, like before." The lie hung, but for a heartbeat, I wavered. The ghost of us, tangled in sheets, whispering futures. Then Nadia's shout. "It's live." Tribune streaming. Cameras from fleeing guests captured the bedlam. Hashtags exploding. Body swap ball Crow downfall. I shoved her away. Fob raised. Too late for us. Vic. The button depressed. And the surge hit, a tidal wave of rejections. Bodies slumping like marionettes cut loose. Crow dropped first, convulsing in the snow, his empire unraveling in real time. Victoria lunged for the fob. We grappled, rolling in the drifts, her nails drawing blood from my cheek. "You were always the weak one," she snarled. But I pinned her, the device inches from her grasp. Sirens wailed closer. CPD. Feds. The whole alphabet crashing the party. In that frozen instant, choices crystallized. Mercy or the abyss. I hesitated, and she twisted free, snatching it. But her hand slipped on the trigger. Intentional? Accidental. And the feedback claimed her, body arching in silent agony before going limp, eyes staring vacant at the fireworks blooming over the lake. I staggered back, chest heaving, the fob cold in my palm. Nadia pulled me up, face ashen. It's over. Phoenix is fried. But as medics swarmed, cuffing the living and bagging the still, I knew the cost. Lives upended. Innocence collateral in my vendetta. The controversial core, had I gone too far? Turning revenge into massacre? Debates would rage. Headlines screaming, Vigilante Voss versus Victims Reckoning. Crow survived, comatose in Northwestern Memorial. His network fracturing under DOJ probes. Senator Hale resigned by dawn. Tearful presser blaming rogue elements.
Me?
Harlan spun it golden. Self-defense. Whistleblower heroism. Charges dropped. Voss and Hale rebranded under new blood. My cut funding a foundation for swap victims, real ones. Not just me. But as I walked Max along the lake that gray January morning, trial postponed indefinitely. Victoria's husk in cold storage pending ethical review. The weight settled. Revenge tasted like ash, hollow as the wind off the water. And the hook I'd ignored? It surfaced then, sharp and unforgiving. The aftermath was a slow hemorrhage. Chicago licking wounds while the nation dissected the gala footage like autopsy slides. Viral clips looped endlessly, tycoons in tutus, heiresses howling in baritones, Crow's collapse timed to the countdown. Pundits pontificated, CNN called it the Great Equalizer, a populist glitch in the Matrix. Fox decried eco-terrorist Luddites, pinning it on me as the ringleader. Petitions swirled. Free the swapped, prosecute the butchers. I dodged them all. Holing up in the brownstone with Nadia and Max. Screens off. The world reduced to takeout foe, and the hum of her rebuilt consoles. Harlan visited weekly. Updates bundled like contraband. Feds raiding Crow's labs from Boston to Baja. Assets seized. A special counsel sniffing for treason. Victoria's case?
Suspended animation litralie.
Her body's vegetative. Brain scans flatlining under residual neural damage, but whispers from the coroner's office hinted at anomalies. Faint activity. Like a radio tuned to static. She's gone. Lila, Harlan assured over bourbon in the study. Fire crackling like guilty confessions. Let it go. You've won. Won? The word curdled. Nights.
Idebakashurin.
Her memories surfacing unbidden. Not the venom, but the vulnerability. A girl raised on approval. Clawing for control in a world that devoured the soft. Had I pushed her there? My blind loyalty enabling the monster? The controversial mirror. Was I the betrayer? Staying silent on the books. Loving the lie because it fit my narrative of us against the world? Nadia cracked first. Mid-February. Over reheated lo mein in the basement. The twist. Lila, it's not what you think. She'd been dissecting the fob's guts. Reverse engineering Phoenix's core code. When she hit the vault, encrypted logs. Swaps timestamped back years. My name wasn't Victim Zero. You initiated it. 6 months ago. Under duress from the audit. Email chain to Crow. Contingency for Vic, vessel prep. The room spun. Chopsticks clattering. I snatched the laptop. Scrolling frantic. My signature. Digital and damning. Proposing the swap to shield her from the feds. Creative solution. I'd written. Mutual benefit, her in my body for trial. Me ghosting till clear. Desperations Inc. Penned in the witching hour after downing half a bottle of Malbec. I'd forgotten. Blacked it out. The pact born of love's last gasp. Offering myself as the scapegoat. But Crow twisted it. Victoria ran with the knife. Betrayal inverted, she'd agreed. But he'd double-crossed us both. hoarding the reversal for leverage. Her theft? Not escape, but to fund my exile, a Vancouver villa in my name. Waiting. The memories I'd glimpsed, hers pleading with Crow to spare me, his laugh echoing as he dosed her first. Victim? Villain? We were both. Tangled in a Gordian knot of good intentions gone nuclear. I confronted the husk that March, bribing a nurse at the ICU for 5 minutes alone. Victoria's body, no. Mine once, lay tubes and beeps. Face slack, but eerily peaceful. The monitor's green line a lifeline to limbo.
Vic, y whisperat.
Hand on her, my cold fingers. We fucked up. Together. No twitch. No sign. But in the silence, absolution flickered. I pulled the plug, not murder. Mercy. Watching the lines flatline. The controversial capstone, euthanasia for the soul trapped. A debate that would echo in ethics halls for decades. Crow died in custody. Suicide by razor in his cell, leaving a manifesto blaming the Voss women for his fall. Nadia vanished post-leak, surfacing in Berlin as a TED speaker on neural rights.
Me?
I sold the penthouse, cashed out V&H shares, relocated to a cabin in Door County, waves lapping Lake Michigan's shore. Max chasing gulls into retirement. The foundation thrived, advocating bans on transference tech. My testimony, a ghost story that swayed Congress. Ending? Pick your poison. Happy. I found peace in solitude. Writing memoirs that top charts. A phoenix from the farce. Tragic. The guilt gnaws. Her ghost in every mirror. Whispering what-ifs. Debatable. Did the swap expose the rot? Or unleash it? Was my revenge justice? Or just another power grab in disguise? As spring thawed the ice, I walked the bluffs, wind whipping like unresolved chords. The day they laughed too soon, the gala, the raid, the swap crumbled not with a bang, but a quiet unraveling. Their plan, my vengeance, all threads in a tapestry of human frailty. And in the end, staring at the horizon where water met sky, I wondered, if given the choice, would I swap back or keep the scars, the strength, the story that made me? Finally,
Whole.
the hook sinks deep, doesn't it? Laughter echoes. But the punchline's yours to argue.